Section 24 of Cossack Fairy Tales. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recorded by Kurt from Tucson, Arizona. Cossack Fairy Tales by Robert Nisbet Bain. Ivan the Fool and St. Peter's Fife. There was once upon a time a man who had 3 sons, and 2 were clever, but the third, called Ivan, was a fool. Their father divided all his goods among them and died, and the 3 brothers went out into the world to seek their fortunes. Now the 2 wise brothers left all their goods at home, but Ivan the fool, who had only inherited a large millstone, took it along with him. They went on till it began to grow dark, when they came to a large forest. Then the wise brothers said, "Let us climb up to the top of this oak and pass the night there, and then robbers will not fall upon us." "But what will this silly donkey do with his millstone?" asked one of them. "You look to yourselves," said Ivan, "for I mean to pass the night in this tree also." Then the wise brothers climbed to the very tip-top of the tree, and there sat down. And then Ivan dragged himself up too, and the millstone after him. He tried to get up as high as his brothers, but the thin boughs broke beneath him, so he had to be content with staying in the lower part of the tree on the thicker boughs. So there he sat, hugging the millstone in his arms. Presently some robbers came along that way, red-handed from their work, and they too prepared to pass the night under the tree. So they cut them down firewood, and made them a roaring fire beneath a huge cauldron, and in this cauldron they began to boil their supper. They boiled and boiled till their mess of pottage was ready, and then they all sat down round the cauldron, and took out their large ladles, and were just about to fall to. In fact, they were blowing their food because it was so boiling hot, when Ivan let his big millstone plump down into the middle of the cauldron, so that the pottage flew right into their eyes. The robbers were so terrified that they all sprang to their feet straightway and scampered off through the forest, forgetting all the booty of which they had robbed the merchantmen. Then Ivan came down from the oak and cried to his brothers, "You come down here and divide the spoil." So the wise brothers came down, put all the merchandise on the backs of the robbers' horses, and went home with it. But the only thing that Ivan was able to secure for himself was a bag of incense. This he immediately took to the nearest churchyard, placed it on top of a tomb, and began to pound away at it with his millstone. Suddenly St. Peter appeared to him and said, "What art thou doing, good man?" "I am pounding up this incense to make bread of it." "Nay, good man, I will advise thee better. Give me the incense, and take from me whatever thou wilt." "Very well, St. Peter," said the fool, "thou must give me a little fife, but a fife of such a sort that whenever I play upon it, every one will be obliged to dance." "But dost thou know how to play upon a fife?" "No, but I can soon learn." Then St. Peter drew forth a little fife from his bosom, and gave it to him, and took away the incense, and who can say where he went with it? But Ivan stood up and gazed at the sky, and said, "Look now, if St. Peter hath not already burnt my incense and made of it that large white cloud that is sailing above my head." Then he took up his fife and began to play, and the moment he began to play, everything around him began to dance. The wolves and the hares and the foxes and the bears, nay, the very birds lit down upon the ground and began to dance, and Ivan went on laughing and playing all the time. Even the savage, surly bears danced and danced till their legs tottered beneath them. Then they clutched tight hold of the trees to stop themselves from dancing, but it was of no use, dance they must. At last Ivan himself was tired and lay down to rest, and when he had rested a little, he got up again and went on into the town. There all the people were in the bazaars, buying and selling. Some were buying pancakes, others baskets of bright-colored eggs, others again pitchers of kvass. Ivan began playing on his fife, and forthwith they all fell a-dancing. One man, who had a whole basket of eggs on his head, danced them into bits, and danced till he looked like the yolk of an egg himself. Those who were asleep got up and gave themselves up to dancing straightway. There were some who danced without trousers, and some who danced without smocks or shirts, and there were some who danced with nothing on at all, for dance they must when Ivan began a-playing. The whole town was turned upside down. The dogs, the swine, the cocks and hens, everything that had life came out and danced. At last Ivan was tired, so he left off playing and went into the town to seek service. A parson there took a fancy to him and said to him, "Good man, wilt enter my service?" "That will I gladly," said Ivan. "How much wages dost thou want by the year, then?" "It won't come dear, 5 karbavontsia." A karbavonets is about 4 shillings. Are all I ask. "Good, I agree," said the parson. So he engaged Ivan as his servant, and the next day he sent him out into the fields to tend his cattle. Ivan drove the cattle into the pastures, but he himself perched on the top of a haystack while the cattle grazed. He sat there and sat till he grew quite dull, and then he said to himself, "I'll play a bit on my fife. I haven't played for a long time." So he began to play, and immediately all the cattle fell a-dancing, and not only the cattle, but all the foxes and the hares and the wolves and everything in the hedges and ditches fell a-dancing too. They danced and danced till the poor cattle were clean worn out and at the last gasp. In the evening Ivan drove them home, but they were so famished that they tugged at the dirty straw roofs of the huts they passed, and so got a chance mouthful or two. But Ivan went in and had supper and a comfortable night's rest afterward. The next day he again drove the cattle into the pastures. They began grazing till he took out his fife again, when they all fell a-dancing like mad. He played on and on till evening, when he drove the cattle home again, and they were all as hungry as could be, and wearied to death from dancing. Now the parson was not a little astonished when he saw his cattle. "Where on earth has he been feeding them?" thought he. "They are quite tired out and almost famished. I'll take care to go myself tomorrow and see exactly whither he takes them, and what he does with them." On the third day the neat herd again drove the cattle into the pastures, but this time the parson followed after them, and went and hid himself behind the hedge near to which Ivan was watching the cattle graze. There he sat then and watched to see what the man would do. Presently Ivan mounted onto the haystack and began to play, and immediately all the cattle fell a-dancing, and everything in the hedge, and the parson behind the hedge danced too. Now the hedge was a quickset hedge, and as the parson began capering about in it, he tore to shreds his cassock and his breeches, and his undercoat and his shirt, and scratched his skin, and wrenched out his beard as if he had been very badly shaved. And still the poor parson had to go on dancing in the midst of the prickly hedge till there were great weals and wounds all over his body, and the red blood began to flow. Then the parson saw he was in evil case, and shrieked to his herdsman to leave off playing. But the herdsman was so wrapped up in his music that he did not hear him. But at last he looked in the direction of the hedge, and when he saw the poor parson skipping about like a lunatic, he stopped. The parson darted away as fast as his legs could carry him toward the village, and oh, what a sight he looked as he dashed through the streets! The people didn't know him, and scandalized that anybody should run about in rags and tatters so that his whole body could be seen, began to hoot him. Then the poor man turned aside from the public road, crawled off through the woods, and dashed off through the tall reeds of the gardens, with the dogs after him. For wherever he went they took him for a robber, and hounded on the dogs. At last the parson got home, all rags and tatters, so that when his wife saw him, she did not know him, but called to the labourers, "Help, help, here's a robber, turn him out." They came rushing up with sticks and cudgels, but he began talking to them, and at last they recognized him, led him home, and he told his wife all about Ivan. The parson's wife was so amazed, she could scarce believe it. In the evening Ivan drove home the oxen, put them into their stalls, gave them straw to eat, and then came into the house himself to have supper. He came into the house, and the parson said to him, "Come now, Ivan, when thou hast rested a bit, play my wife a little song." But as for the parson, he took good care to tie himself first of all to the pillar which held up the roof of the house. Ivan sat down on the ground near to the threshold and began to play. The parson's wife sat down on the bench to listen to him while he played, but immediately she leaped up from the bench and began to dance, and she danced with such hearty good will that the place became too small for her. Then the devil seemed to take possession of the cat too, for pussy leaped from under the stove and began to spring and bound about also. The parson held on and held on to the pillar with all his might, but it was of no use. He had no power to resist. He let go with his hands, and tugged till the rope that held him grew slacker and slacker, and then he went dancing round and round the pillar at a furious rate, with the rope chafing his hands and feet all the time. At last he could endure it no longer, and bawled to Ivan to stop. "The deuce is in thee!" cried he. Then Ivan stopped playing, put his fife into his breast pocket, and went and lay down to sleep. But the parson said to his wife, "We must turn away this Ivan tomorrow, for he will be the death of ourselves and our cattle." Ivan, however, overheard what the parson said to his wife, and getting up early in the morning, he went straight to the parson, and said to him, "Give me 100 karbovantsya, and I'll be off. But if you won't give them to me, I'll play and play till you and your wife have danced yourselves to death, and then I'll take your place and live at mine ease." The parson scratched himself behind the ears and hesitated, but at last he thought he had better give the money and be quit of him. So he took the 100 karbovantsya out of his satchel and gave them to Ivan. Then Ivan played them a parting song, till the parson and his wife fell down to the ground, dead beat, with their tongues lolling out of their mouths, and then he put his fife into his breast pocket, and wandered forth into the wide world. End of section 24.
Section 25 of Cossack Fairy Tales. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Jennifer Painter. Cossack Fairy Tales by Robert Nisbet Bain. Chapter 25. The Magic Egg. There was once upon a time a lark who was the Tsar among the birds, and he took unto himself as his Tsaritsa a little shrew mouse. They had a field all to themselves, which they sowed with wheat, and when the wheat grew up, they divided it between them, when they found that there was one grain over. The mouse said, "Let me have it." But the lark said, "No, let me have it." "What's to be done?" thought they. They would have liked to take counsel of someone, but they had no parents or kinsmen, nobody at all to whom they could go and ask advice in the matter. At last the mouse said, "At any rate, let me have the first nibble." The lark Tsar agreed to this, but the little mouse fastened her teeth into it and ran off into her hole with it, and there ate it all up. At this the Tsar lark was wroth, and collected all the birds of the air to make war upon the mouse Tsaritsa. But the Tsaritsa called together all the beasts to defend her, and so the war began. Whenever the beasts came rushing out of the wood to tear the birds to pieces, the birds flew up into the trees. But the birds kept in the air and hacked and pecked the beasts wherever they could. Thus they fought the whole day, and in the evening they lay down to rest. Now when the Tsaritsa looked around upon her forces, she saw that the ant was taking no part in the war. She immediately went and commanded the ant to be there by evening, and when the ant came, the Tsaritsa ordered her to climb up the trees with her kinsmen and bite off the feathers round the birds' wings. Next day, when there was light enough to see by, the mouse Tsaritsa cried, "Up, up, my warriors!" Thereupon the birds also rose up and immediately fell to the ground, where the beasts tore them to bits. So the Tsaritsa overcame the Tsar. But there was one eagle who saw there was something wrong, so he did not try to fly, but remained sitting on the tree. And lo, there came an archer along that way, and seeing the eagle on the tree, he took aim at it. But the eagle besought him and said, "Do not kill me, and I'll be of great service to thee." The archer aimed a second time. But the eagle besought him still more and said, "Take me down rather and keep me, and thou shalt see that it will be to thy advantage." The archer, however, took aim a third time. But the eagle began to beg of him most piteously, "Nay, kill me not, but take me home with thee, and thou shalt see what great advantage it will be to thee." The archer believed the bird. He climbed up the tree, took the eagle down, and carried it home. Then the eagle said to him, "Put me in a hut and feed me with flesh till my wings have grown again." Now this archer had 2 cows and a steer, and he at once killed and cut up one of the cows for the eagle. The eagle fed upon this cow for a full year, and then he said to the archer, "Let me go, that I may fly. I see that my wings have already grown again." Then the archer let him loose from the hut. The eagle flew round and round. He flew about for half a day, and then he returned to the archer and said, "I feel I have but little strength in me. Slay me another cow." And the archer obeyed him, and slew the second cow, and the eagle lived upon that for yet another year. Again the eagle flew round and round in the air. He flew round and about the whole day till evening, when he returned to the archer and said, "I am stronger than I was, but I have still but little strength in me. Slay me the steer also." Then the man thought to himself, "What shall I do? Shall I slay it, or shall I not slay it?" At last he said, "Well, I've sacrificed more than this before, so let this go too." And he took the steer and slaughtered it for the eagle. Then the eagle lived upon this for another whole year longer, and after that he took to flight and flew high up right to the very clouds. Then he flew down again to the man and said to him, "I thank thee, brother, for that thou hast been the saving of me. Come now and sit upon me." "Nay, but," said the man, "what if some evil befall me?" "Sit on me, I say," cried the eagle. So the archer sat down upon the bird. Then the eagle bore him nearly as high as the big clouds, and then let him fall. Down plumped the man, but the eagle did not let him fall to the earth, but swiftly flew beneath him and upheld him, and said to him, "How dost thou feel now?" "I feel," said the man, "as if I had no life in me." Then the eagle replied, "That was just how I felt when thou didst aim at me the first time." Then he said to him, "Sit on my back again." The man did not want to sit on him, but what could he do? Sit he must. Then the eagle flew with him quite as high as the big clouds, and shook him off, and down he fell headlong till he was about 2 fathoms from the ground, when the bird again flew beneath him and held him up. Again the eagle asked him, "How dost thou feel?" And the man replied, "I feel just as if all my bones were already broken to bits." "That is just how I felt when thou didst take aim at me the second time," replied the eagle. "But now sit on my back once more." The man did so, and the eagle flew with him as high as the small fleecy clouds, and then he shook him off, and down he fell headlong. But when he was but a hand's breadth from the earth, the eagle again flew beneath him and held him up, and said to him, "How dost thou feel now?" And he replied, "I feel as if I no longer belonged to this world." "That is just how I felt when thou didst aim at me the third time," replied the eagle. "But now," continued the bird, "thou art guilty no more. We are quits. I owe thee naught, and thou owest naught to me. So sit on my back again, and I'll take thee to my master." They flew on and on. They flew till they came to the eagle's uncle. And the eagle said to the archer, "Go to my house, and when they ask thee, 'Hast thou not seen our poor child?' reply, 'Give me the magic egg, and I'll bring him before your eyes.'" So he went to the house, and there they said to him, "Hast thou heard of our poor child with thine ears, or seen him with thine eyes? And hast thou come hither willingly or unwillingly?" And he answered, "I have come hither willingly." Then they asked, "Hast thou smelt out anything of our poor youngster? For it is 3 years now since he went to the wars, and there's neither sight nor sound of him more." And he answered, "Give me the magic egg, and I'll bring him straight away before your eyes." Then they replied, "'Twere better we never saw him, than that we should give thee the magic egg." Then he went back to the eagle and said to him, "They said, 'Twere better we never saw him, than that we should give thee the magic egg." Then the eagle answered, "Let us fly on farther." They flew on and on till they came to the eagle's brother, and the archer said just the same to him as he had said to the eagle's uncle, and still he didn't get the egg. Then they flew to the eagle's father, and the eagle said to him, "Go up to the hut, and if they ask for me, say that thou hast seen me, and will bring me before their eyes." So he went up to the hut, and they said to him, "O Tsarevich, we hear thee with our ears, and see thee with our eyes, but hast thou come hither of thine own free will, or by the will of another?" And the archer answered, "I have come hither of my own free will." Then they asked him, "Hast thou seen our son? Lo, these 4 years we have not had news of him. He went off to the wars, and perchance he has been slain there." And he answered them, "I have seen him, and if you will give me the magic egg, I will bring him before your eyes." And the eagle's father said to him, "What good will such a thing do thee? We had better give thee the lucky penny." But he answered, "I don't want the lucky penny. Give me the magic egg." "Come hither then," said he, "and thou shalt have it." So he went into the hut. Then the eagle's father rejoiced and gave him the egg, and said to him, "Take heed thou dost not break it anywhere on the road, and when thou gettest home, hedge it round and build a strong fence about it, and it will do thee good." So he went homeward. He went on and on till a great thirst came upon him. So he stopped at the first spring he came to, and as he stooped to drink, he stumbled, and the magic egg was broken. Then he perceived that an ox had come out of the egg and was rolling away. He gave chase to the ox, but whenever he was getting close to one side of it, the other side of it got farther away from him. Then the poor fellow cried, "I shall do nothing with it myself, I see." At that moment an old she-dragon came up to him and said, "What wilt thou give me, O man, if I chase this ox back again into the egg for thee?" And the archer replied, "What can I give?" The dragon said to him, "Give me what thou hast at home, without thy will and wit." "Done," said the archer. Then the dragon chased the ox nicely into the egg again, patched it up prettily, and gave it into the man's hand. Then the archer went home, and when he got home he found a son had been born to him there, and his son said to him, "Why didst thou give me to the old she-dragon, Dad? But never mind, I'll manage to live in spite of her." Then the father was very grieved for a time, but what could he do? Now the name of this son was Ivan. So Ivan lost no time in going to the dragon, and the dragon said to him, "Go to my house and do me 3 tasks, and if thou dost them not, I'll devour thee." Now round the dragon's house, was a large meadow as far as the eye could reach. And the dragon said to him, "Thou must in a single night weed out this field and sow wheat in it, and reap the wheat and store it, all in this very night. And thou must bake me a roll out of this selfsame wheat, and the roll must be lying ready for me on my table in the morning." Then Ivan went and leaned over the fence, and his heart within him was sore troubled. Now near to him there was a post, and on this post was the dragon's starveling daughter. So when he came thither and fell a-weeping, she asked him, "Wherefore dost thou weep?" And he said, "How can I help weeping? The dragon has bidden me do something I can never, never do. And what is more, she has bidden me to do it in a single night." "What is it, pray?" asked the dragon's daughter. Then he told her. "Not every bush bears a berry," cried she. "Promise to take me to wife, and I'll do all she has bidden thee do." He promised, and then she said to him again, "Now go and lie down, but see that thou art up early in the morning to bring her roll." Then she went to the field, and before one could whistle she had cleaned it of weeds and harrowed it and sown it with wheat, and by dawn she had reaped the wheat and cooked the roll and brought it to him and said, "Now take it to her hut and put it on her table." Then the old she-dragon awoke and came to the door, and was amazed at the sight of the field, which was now all stubble, for the corn had been cut. Then she said to Ivan, "Yes, thou hast done the work well, but now see that thou doest my second task." Then she gave him her second command, "Dig up that mountain yonder, and let the Dnieper flow over the site of it, and there build a storehouse, and in the storehouse stack the wheat that thou hast reaped, and sell this wheat to the merchant barks that sail by, and everything must be done by the time I get up early next morning." Then he again went to the fence and wept, and the maiden said to him, "Why dost thou weep?" And he told her all that the she-dragon had bidden him do. "There are lots of bushes, but where are the berries? Go and lie down, I'll do it all for thee." Then she whistled, and the mountain was levelled, and the Dnieper flowed over the site of it, and round about the Dnieper storehouses rose up, and then she came and woke him that he might go and sell the wheat to the merchant barks that sailed by that way. And when the she-dragon rose up early in the morning, she was amazed to see that everything had been done which she had commanded him. Then she gave him her third command, "This night thou must catch the golden hare and bring it to me by the morning light." Again he went to the fence and fell a-weeping, and the girl asked him, "Why art thou weeping?" He said to her, "She has ordered me to catch her the golden hare." "Oh, oh!" cried the she-dragon's daughter, "the berries are ripening now. Only her father knows how to catch such a hare as that. Nevertheless, I'll go to a rocky place I know of, and there perchance we shall be able to catch it." So they went to this rocky place together, and she said to him, "Stand over that hole, I'll go in and chase him out of the hole, and do thou catch him as he comes out. But mind, whatever comes out of the hole seize it, for it will be the golden hare." So she went and began beating up, and all at once out came a snake and hissed, and he let it go. Then she came out of the hole and said to him, "What, has nothing come out?" "Well," said he, "only a snake, and I was afraid it would bite me, so I let it go." "What hast thou done?" said she. "That was the very hare itself." "Look now," said she, "I'll go in again, and if any one comes out and tells you that the golden hare is not here, do not believe it, but hold him fast." So she crept into the hole again and began to beat for game, and out came an old woman, who said to the youth, "What art thou poking about there for?" And he said to her, "For the golden hare." she said to him, "it is not here, for this is a snake's hole." And when she had said this, she went away. Presently the girl also came out and said to him, "What? Hast thou not got the hare? Did nothing come out then?" "No," said he, "nothing but an old woman who asked me what I was seeking, and I told her the golden hare, and she said, 'It is not here,' so I let her go." Then the girl replied, "Why didst thou not lay hold of her? For she was the very golden hare itself, and now thou never wilt catch it unless I turn myself into her hare, and thou take and lay me on the table, and give me into my mother's, the she-dragon's hands, and go away, for if she finds out all about it, she will tear the pair of us to pieces." So she changed herself into a hare, and he took and laid her on the table, and said to the she-dragon, "There's thy hare for thee, and now let me go away." She said to him, "Very well, be off." Then he set off running, and he ran and ran as hard as he could. Soon after the old she-dragon discovered that it was not the golden hare, but her own daughter, so she set about chasing after them to destroy them both, for the daughter had made haste in the meantime to join Ivan. But as the she-dragon couldn't run herself, she sent her husband, and he began chasing them, and they knew he was coming, for they felt the earth trembling beneath his tread. Then the she-dragon's daughter said to Ivan, "I hear him running after us. I'll turn myself into standing wheat, and thee into an old man guarding me. And if he asks thee, 'Hast thou seen a lad and a lass pass by this way?' say to him, 'Yes, they passed by this way while I was sowing this wheat.'" A little while afterward the she-dragon's husband came flying up. "Have a lad and a lass passed by this way?" said he. "Yes," replied the old man, "they have." "Was it long ago?" asked the she-dragon's husband. "It was while this wheat was being sown," replied the old man. "Oh," thought the dragon, "this wheat is ready for the sickle. They couldn't have been this way yesterday," so he turned back. Then the she-dragon's daughter turned herself back into a maiden, and the old man into a youth, and off they set again. But the dragon returned home, and the she-dragon asked him, "What? Hast thou not caught them, or met them on the road?" "Met them, no," said he. "I did indeed pass on the road some standing wheat and an old man watching it, and I asked the old man if he had seen a lad and a lass pass by that way, and he said yes, while this wheat was being sown, but the wheat was quite ripe for the sickle, so I knew it was a long while ago, and turned back." "Why didst thou not tear that old man and the wheat to pieces?" cried the she-dragon. "It was they. Be off after them again, and mind this time tear them to pieces without fail." So the dragon set off after them again, and they heard him coming from afar, for the earth trembled beneath him. So the damsel said to Ivan, "He's coming again, I hear him. Now I'll change myself into a monastery, so old that it will be almost falling to pieces, and I'll change thee into an old black monk at the gate, and when he comes up and asks, 'Hast thou seen a lad and a lass pass this way?' say to him, 'Yes, they passed by this way when this monastery was being built.'" Soon afterward the dragon came flying past, and asked the monk, "Hast thou seen a lad and a lass pass by this way?" "Yes," he replied, "I saw them what time the holy fathers began to build this monastery." The dragon thought to himself, "That was not yesterday. This monastery has stood 100 years, if it has stood a day, and won't stand much longer either." And with that he turned him back. When he got home he said to the she-dragon, his wife, "I met a black monk who serves in a monastery, and I asked him about them, and he told me that a lad and a lass had run past that way when the monastery was being built, but that was not yesterday, for the monastery is 100 years old at the very least. Why didst thou not tear the black monk to pieces and pull down the monastery? For 'twas they. But I see I must go after them myself. Thou art no good at all." So off she set, and ran, and they knew she was coming, for the earth quaked and yawned beneath her. Then the damsel said to Ivan, "I fear me 'tis all over, for she is coming herself. Look now, I change thee into a stream, and myself into a fish, a perch." Immediately after, the she-dragon came up and said to the perch, "Oh, oh, so thou wouldst run away from me, eh?" Then she turned herself into a pike, and began chasing the perch, but every time she drew near to it, the perch turned its prickly fins toward her, so that she could not catch hold of it. So she kept on chasing and chasing it, but finding she could not catch it, she tried to drink up the stream, till she drank so much of it that she burst. Then the maiden who had become a fish said to the youth who had become a river, "Now that we are alive and not dead, go back to thy lord father and thy father's house and see them, and kiss them all except the daughter of thy uncle. For if thou kiss that damsel, thou wilt forget me, and I shall go to the land of nowhere." So he went home and greeted them all, and as he did so he thought to himself, "Why should I not greet my uncle's daughter like the rest of them? Why, they'll think me a mere pagan if I don't." So he kissed her, and the moment he did so, he forgot all about the girl who had saved him. So he remained there half a year, and then bethought him of taking to himself a wife. So they betrothed him to a very pretty girl, and he accepted her, and forgot all about the other girl who had saved him from the dragon, though she herself was the she-dragon's daughter. Now the evening before the wedding they heard a young damsel crying "Shishki" in the streets. Footnote: wedding cakes of the shape of pine cones. End of footnote. They called to the young damsel to go away, or say who she was, for nobody knew her. But the damsel answered never a word, but began to knead more cakes, and made a cock-dove and a hen-dove out of the dough, and put them down on the ground, and they became alive. And the hen-dove said to the cock-dove, "Hast thou forgotten how I cleared the field for thee, and sowed it with wheat, and thou madest a roll from the corn which thou gavest to the she-dragon?" But the cock-dove answered, "Forgotten, forgotten." Then she said to him again, "And hast thou forgotten how I dug away the mountain for thee, and let the Dnieper flow by it, that the merchant barks might come to thy storehouses, and that thou might sell thy wheat to the merchant barks?" But the cock-dove replied, "Forgotten, forgotten." Then the hen-dove said to him again, "And hast thou forgotten how we two went together in search of the golden hair? Hast thou forgotten me then altogether?" And the cock-dove answered again, "Forgotten, forgotten." Then the good youth Ivan bethought him who this damsel was that had made the doves, and he took her to his arms and made her his wife, and they lived happily ever afterward. End of chapter 25. Section 26 of Cossack Fairy Tales. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Jennifer Painter. Cossack Fairy Tales by Robert Nisbet Bain. Chapter 26. The Story of the 41st Brother. There was once upon a time an old man who had 41 sons. Now, when this old man was at the point of death, he divided all he had among his sons, and gave to each of the 40 a horse. But when he came to the 41st, he found he had no more horses left, so the 41st brother had to be content with a foal. When their father was dead, the brothers said to each other, "Let us go to Friday and get married." But the eldest brother said, "No, Friday has only 40 daughters, so one of us would be left without a bride." Then the second brother said, "Let us go then to Wednesday. Wednesday has 41 daughters, and so the whole lot of us can pair off with the whole lot of them." So they went and chose their brides. The eldest brother took the eldest sister, and the youngest, till they were all suited. And the youngest brother of all said, "I'll take that little damsel who is sitting on the stove in the corner, and has the nice kerchief in her hand." Then they all drank a bumper together to seal the bargain, and after that the 41 bridegrooms and the 41 brides laid them down to sleep side by side. But the youngest brother of all said to himself, "I will bring my foal into the room." So he brought in the foal, and then went to his bedchamber and laid him down to sleep also. Now his bride lay down with her kerchief in her hand, and he took a great fancy to it, and he begged and prayed her for it again and again, until at last she gave it to him. Now, when Wednesday thought that all the people were asleep, he went out into the courtyard to sharpen his sabre. Then the foal said, "Oh, my dear little master, come here, come here." He came, and the foal said to him, "Take off the night dresses of the 40 sleeping bridegrooms, and put them on the 40 sleeping brides, and put the night dresses of the brides on the bridegrooms, for a great woe is nigh." And he did so. When Wednesday had sharpened his sabre, he came into the room and began feeling for the stiff collars of the bridegrooms' night dresses, and straightway cut off the 40 heads above the collars. Then he carried off the heads of his 40 daughters in a bunch, for the brides now had on the night dresses of their bridegrooms, and went and lay down to sleep. Then the foal said, "My dear little father, awake the bridegrooms, and we'll set off." So he awoke the bridegrooms and sent them on before, while he followed after on his own little nag. They trotted on, and at last the foal said to him, "Look behind and see whether Wednesday is not pursuing." He looked round. "Yes, little brother," said he, "Wednesday is pursuing." "Shake thy kerchief then," said the foal. He shook his kerchief, and immediately a vast sea was between him and the pursuer. Then they went on till the foal said to him again, "Look behind and see if Wednesday is still pursuing." He looked round. "Yes, little brother, he is pursuing." "Wave thy handkerchief on the left side," said the foal. He waved it on the left side, and immediately between them and the pursuer stood a forest so thick that not even a little mouse could have squeezed through it. Then they went on still farther, till the foal said again, "Look behind and see whether Wednesday is still pursuing." He looked behind, and there, sure enough, was Wednesday running after them, and he was not very far off either. "Wave thy kerchief," said the foal. He waved his kerchief, and immediately a steep mountain, oh, so steep, lay betwixt them. They went on until the foal said again, "Look behind, is Wednesday still pursuing?" So he looked behind him and said, "No, now he is not there." Then they went on again, and soon they were not very far from home. Then the youngest brother said, "You go home now, but I am going to seek a bride." So he went on till he came to a place where lay a feather of the bird Zaa. "Look," cried he, "what I've found." But the foal said to him, "Pick not up that feather, for it will bring thee evil as well as good." But his master said, "Why, I should be a fool not to pick up a feather like that." So he turned back and picked up the feather. Then he went on farther and farther, until he came to a clay hut. He went into this clay hut, and there sat an old woman. "Give me a night's lodging, Granny," said he. "I have neither bed nor light to offer thee," said she. Nevertheless, he entered the hut and put the feather on the window corner, and it lit up the whole hut. So he went to sleep. But the old woman ran off to the Tsar and said to him, "A certain man has come to me and laid a certain feather on the window-sill, and it shines like fire." Then the Tsar guessed that it was a feather of the bird Tsar, and said to his soldiers, "Go and fetch that man hither." And the Tsar said to him, "Wilt thou enter my service?" "Yes," he replied, "but you must give me all your keys." So the Tsar gave him all the keys and a hut of his own to live in besides. But one day the Tsar said to his servants, "Boil me now a vat of milk." So they boiled it. Then he took off his gold ring and said to the man, "Thou didst get the feather of the bird, Tsar. Get me also this golden ring of mine out of the vat of boiling milk." "Bring hither, then, my faithful horse," said he, "that he may see his master plunge into the vat of boiling milk and die." So they brought his horse, and taking off his clothes, he plunged into the vat. But as he did so, the horse snorted so violently that all the boiling milk leapt up in the air, and the man seized the ring and gave it back to the Tsar. Now when the Tsar saw that the man had come out of the vat younger and handsomer than ever, he said, "I'll try and fish up the ring in like manner." So he flung his ring into the vat of boiling milk and plunged after it to get it. The people waited and waited, and wondered that he was so long about it. And at last they drained off the milk, and found the Tsar at the bottom of the vat, boiled quite red. Then the man said, "Now, Tsaritsa, thou art mine, and I am thine." And they lived together happily ever afterward. End of chapter 26.
Section 27 of Cossack Fairy Tales. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Devorah Allen. Cossack Fairy Tales by Robert Nisbet Bain. The Story of the Unlucky Days. At the end of a village on the verge of the steppe dwelt two brothers, one rich and the other poor. One day the poor brother came to the rich brother's house and sat down at his table. But the rich brother drove him away and said, "How durst thou sit at my table? Be off! Thy proper place is in the fields, to scare away the crows." So the poor brother went into the fields to scare away the crows. The crows all flew away when they saw him, but among them was a raven that flew back again and said to him, "O man, in this village thou wilt never be able to live, for here there is neither luck nor happiness for thee. But go into another village, and thou shalt do well." Then the man went home, called together his wife and children, put up the few old clothes that still remained in his wardrobe, and went on to the next village, carrying his water-skin on his shoulders. On and on they tramped along the road, but the Unlucky Days clung on to the man behind, and said, "Why dost thou not take us with thee? We will never leave thee, for thou art ours." So they went on with him till they came to a river, and the man, who was thirsty, went down to the water's edge for a drink. He undid his water-skin, persuaded the Unlucky Days to get into it, tied it fast again, and buried it on the bank close by the river. Then he and his family went on farther. They went on and on till they came to another village, and at the very end of it was an empty hut. The people who had lived there had died of hunger. There the whole family settled down. One day they were all sitting down there, when they heard something in the mountain crying, "Catch hold! Catch hold! Catch hold!" The man went at once into his stable, took down the bit and reins that remained to him, and climbed up into the mountain. He looked all about him as he went, and at last he saw, sitting down, an old goat with 2 large horns. It was the devil himself, but of course he didn't know that. So he made a lasso of the reins, threw them round the old goat, and began to drag it gently down the mountainside. He dragged it all the way up the ladder of his barn, when the goat disappeared, but showers and showers of money came tumbling through the ceiling. He collected them all together, and they filled 2 large coffers. Then the poor man made the most of his money, and in no very long time he was well to do. Then he sent some of his people to his rich brother, and invited him to come and live with him. The rich brother pondered the matter over. "Maybe he has nothing to eat," thought he, "and that is why he sends for me." So he bade them bake him a good store of fat pancakes, and set out accordingly. On the way he heard that his brother had grown rich, and the farther he went, the more he heard of his brother's wealth. Then he regretted that he had brought all the pancakes with him, so he threw them away into the ditch. At last he came to his brother's house, and his brother showed him first one of the coffers full of money, and then the other. Then envy seized upon the rich brother, and he grew quite green in the face. But his brother said to him, "Look now, I have buried a lot more money in a water-skin, hard by the river. You may dig it up and keep it if you like, for I have lots of my own here." The rich brother did not wait to be told twice. Off he went to the river, and began digging up the water-skin straightway. He unfastened it with greedy, trembling hands, but he had no sooner opened it than the unlucky days all popped out and clung on to him. "Thou art ours," said they. He went home, and when he got there he found that all his wealth was consumed, and a heap of ashes stood where his house had been. So he went and lived in the place where his brother had lived, and the unlucky days lived with him ever afterward. End of section 27.
Section 28 of Cossack Fairy Tales. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Kurt, from Tucson, Arizona. Cossack Fairy Tales by Robert Nisbet Bain. The Wondrous Story of Ivan Golik and the Serpents. Somewhere, nowhere, in another kingdom, in the empire of thrice 10, lived, whether 'twas a Tsar or a Tsaritsa, or only a prince and a princess, I know not, but anyhow they had 2 sons. One day this prince said to his sons, "Let us go down to the seashore, and listen to the songs of the sea folk." So they went. Now the prince wanted to test the wits of his 2 sons. He wanted to see which of the twain was fit for ruling his empire, and which should stand aside and make way for better men. So they went on together till they came to where 3 oaks stood all in a row. The prince looked at the trees and said to his eldest son, "My dear son, what wouldst thou make of those trees?" "What would I make of them, dear father? I would make me good barns and storehouses out of them. I would cut them down and plane the timber well, and goodly should be the planks I should make of them." "Good, my son," replied the prince. "Thou wilt make a careful householder." Then he asked his younger son, "And what wouldst thou make of these oaks, my son?" "Well, dear father," said he, "had I only as much power as will, I would cut down the middle oak, lay it across the other 2, and hang up every prince and every noble in the wide world." Then the prince shook his head and was silent. Presently they came to the sea, and all 3 stood still and looked at it, and watched the fishes play. Then suddenly the prince caught hold of his younger son, and pitched him right into the sea. "Perish!" cried he, "for 'tis but just that such a wretch as thou shouldst perish." Now, just as the father pitched his younger son into the sea, a great whalefish was coming along and swallowed him, and into its maw he went. There he found wagons with horses and oxen harnessed to them, all of which the fish had also gobbled. So he went rummaging about these wagons to see what was in them, and he found that one of the wagons was full of tobacco pipes and tobacco, and flints and steels. So he took up a pipe, filled it with tobacco, lit it, and began to smoke. He smoked out one pipe, filled another, and smoked that too. Then he filled a third, and began smoking that. At last the smoke inside the whale made it feel so uncomfortable that it opened its mouth, swam ashore, and went asleep on the beach. Now some huntsmen happened to be going along the beach at that time, and one of them saw the whale, and said, "Look, my brethren, we have been hunting jays and crows, and shot nothing, and lo, what a monstrous fish lies all about the shore. Let us shoot it." So they shot at it, and then they fell upon it with their axes, and began to cut it to pieces. They cut and hacked at it, till suddenly they heard something calling to them from the middle of the fish. "Ho, my brothers, hack fish if you like, but hack not that flesh which is full of Christian blood." They fell down to the ground for fright, and were like dead men. But the prince's younger son crept out of the hole in the fish that the huntsman had made, went out upon the shore, and sat down. He sat down there quite naked, for all his clothes had rotted and dropped off inside the fish. Maybe he had been a whole year in the whale without knowing it, and he thought to himself, "How shall I manage to live in the wide, wide world?" Meanwhile, the elder brother had become a great nobleman. His father had died, and he was lord over his whole inheritance. Then, as is the wont of princes, he called together his senators and his servants, and they counseled their young prince to marry. So out he went to seek a bride, and a great retinue followed after him. They went on and on till they came to where a naked man was sitting. Then the prince said to one of his servants, "Go and see what manner of man that is." So the servant went up to the man and said, "Hail! Hail to thee! Who art thou, prithee?" "I am Ivan Golik." Footnote: naked. End of footnote. "Who art thou?" "We are from such and such a land, and we are going with our prince to seek him a bride." "Go tell thy prince that he must take me with him, for he'll make no good match without me." So the messenger returned to the prince and told him. Then the prince bade his servants open his trunk and take out a shirt and pantaloons and all manner of raiment, whereupon the naked man went into the water and washed, and after that he dressed himself. Then they brought him to the prince, and he said to him, "If you take me with you, you must all obey me. If you listen to me, you shall remain in the land of Russia, but if not, you shall all perish." "Be it so," said the prince, and he bade all his suite obey him. They went on and on till they overtook the hosts of the mice. The prince wanted to go hunting after the mice, but Ivan Golik said, "Nay, step aside and give place to the mice, so that not a single one of them lose a single hair." So they turned aside, and the mice swept by in their hosts, but the hindmost mouse turned round and said, "Thanks to thee, Ivan Golik, thou hast saved my host from perishing. I will save thine also." Then they went on farther, and lo, the gnat was marching with his host, and so vast was it that no eye could take it all in. Then the lieutenant general of the gnats came flying up and said, "O Ivan Golik, let my host drink of thy blood. If thou dost consent, 'twill be to thy profit, but if thou dost not consent, thou shalt not remain in the land of Russia." Then he stripped off his shirt and bade them tie him up so he could not beat off a single gnat, and the gnats drank their fill of him and flew off again. After that they went along by the seashore till they came to a man who had caught 2 pike. Then Ivan Golik said to the prince, "Buy those 2 pike of the man, and let them go into the sea again." "But wherefore?" "Ask not wherefore, but buy them." So they bought the pike and let them go into the sea again, but as they swam away the pike turned round and said, "We thank thee, Ivan Golik, that thou hast not let us perish, and it shall be to thy weal and welfare." Swiftly they moved on their way, but the story that tells thereof moves still swifter. They went on and on for more than a month maybe, till they came to another land and to another tsardom, to the empire of Thrice 10. And the serpent was the Tsar of that tsardom. Vast were his palaces, iron railings surrounded his courtyards, and the railings were covered with the heads of various warriors. Only on the 20 huge pillars in front of the gate were there no heads. As they drew nigh, deadly fear oppressed the heart of the prince, and he said to Ivan, "Mark me, Ivan, those pillars yonder are meant for our heads." "That remains to be seen," replied Ivan Golik. When they arrived there, the serpent at first treated them hospitably as welcome guests. They were all to come in and make merry, he said, but the prince he took to his own house. So they ate and drank together, and the thoughts of their hearts were joyous. Now the serpent had 21 daughters, and he brought them to the prince, and told him which was the eldest, and which was the next eldest, down to the very last one. But it was the youngest daughter of all that the prince's fancy fed upon more than on any of the others. Thus they diverted themselves till evening, and in the evening they made ready to go to sleep. But the serpent said to the prince, "Well, which of my daughters dost thou think the loveliest?" "The youngest is the most beautiful," said the prince, "and her will I wed." "Good," said the serpent, "but I will not let thee have my daughter till thou hast done all my tasks. If thou doest my tasks, thou shalt have my daughter, but if thou doest them not, thou shalt lose thy head, and all thy suite shall perish with thee." Then he gave him his first task. "In my barn are 300 ricks of corn. By the morning light thou shalt have threshed and sifted them, so that stalk lies by stalk, chaff by chaff, and grain by grain." Then the prince went to his own place to pass the night there, and bitterly he wept. But Ivan Golik saw that he was weeping, and said to him, "Why dost thou weep, O prince?" "Why should I not weep, seeing the task that the serpent has given me is impossible?" "Nay, weep not, my prince, but lay down to sleep, and by the morning light it will all be done." No sooner had Ivan Golik left the prince than he went outside and whistled for the mice. Then the mice assembled round them in their hosts. "Why dost thou whistle, and what dost thou want of us, O Ivan Golik?" said they. "Why should I not whistle, seeing that the serpent has bidden us thresh out his barn by the morning light, so that straw lies by straw, chaff by chaff, and grain by grain?" No sooner did the mice hear this than they began scampering all about the barn. There were so many of them that there was not room to move. They set to work with a will, and long before dawn it was quite finished. Then they went and woke Ivan Golik. He went and looked, and lo, all the chaff was by itself, and all the grain was by itself, and all the straw by itself. Then Ivan bade them be quite sure that there was not a single grain remaining, and a single ear of corn. So they scampered all about, and there was not a mouse which did not look under every stalk of straw. Then they ran up to him and said, "Fear not, there is not a single loose grain anywhere. And now we have requited thee thy service, Ivan Golik. Farewell." Next morning the prince came to seek Ivan, and marveled to find that everything had been done as the serpent had commanded. So he thanked Ivan Golik and went off to the serpent. Then they both went together, and the serpent himself was amazed. He called to his 21 daughters to search the ears of corn well, to see whether one single grain might not be found therein. And his daughters searched and searched, but there was not a single loose grain to be found. Then said the serpent, "'Tis well, let us go. We will eat and drink and make merry till evening, and in the evening I will give thee thy tomorrow's task." So they made merry till evening, and then the serpent said, "Early this morning my youngest daughter went bathing in the sea and lost her ring in the water. She searched and searched for it, but could find it nowhere. If thou canst find it tomorrow, and bring it hither while we are sitting down to meat, thou shalt remain alive. If not, 'tis all over with thee." The prince returned to his own people and fell a-weeping. Ivan Golik perceived it, and said to him, "Wherefore dost thou weep?" "For such and such a reason," said he. "Dost thou not see that I am ruined?" Then said Ivan Golik, "The serpent lies. He himself it was who took his daughter's ring, and flew over the sea early this morning, and dropped it in the water. But lie down and sleep. I myself will go to the sea tomorrow, Haply I may find the ring." So very early next morning Ivan Golik went down to the sea. He shouted with an heroic voice, and whistled with an heroic whistle, till the whole sea was troubled by a storm. Then the two pike he had thrown back into the sea came swimming to the shore. "Why dost thou call us, O Ivan Golik?" said they. "Why should I not call you?" "The serpent flew over the sea early yesterday morning, and dropped in it his daughter's ring. Search for it everywhere. If you find it, I shall remain alive. But if you find it not, know that the serpent will remove me from the face of the earth." Then they swam off and searched, nor was there a single corner of the sea where they searched not. Yet they found nothing. At last they swam off to their mother, and told her what a great woe was about to befall. Their mother said to them, "The ring is with me. I am sorry for him, and still more sorry for you, so you may have it." And with that she drew off the ring, and they swam with it to Ivan Golik, and said, "Now we have requited thy service. We have found it, but 'twas a hard task." Then Ivan Golik thanked the two pike, and went on his way. He found the prince weeping, for the serpent had already sent for him twice, and there was no ring. The moment he saw Ivan Golik, he sprang to his feet and said, "Hast thou the ring?" "Yes, here it is, but look, the serpent himself is coming." "Let him come." The serpent was already on the threshold as the prince was going out. They ran against each other with their foreheads, and the serpent was very angry. "Where's the ring?" cried he. "There it is, but I will not give it to thee, but to her from whom thou didst take it." The serpent laughed. "Very good," said he, "but now let us go to dinner, for my guests are many, and we have been waiting for thee this long time." So they went. The prince arrived at the house where 11 serpents were sitting down to dinner. He saluted them, and then went on to the daughters, and said, as he drew off the ring, "To which of you does this belong?" Then the youngest daughter blushed, and said, "To me." "If it be thine, take it, for I sounded all the depths of the sea in searching for it." All the others laughed, but the youngest daughter thanked him. Then they all went to dine. After dinner the serpent said to him in the presence of all the guests, "Well, prince, now that thou hast dined and rested, to thy tasks again. I have a bow of 100 poods. Footnote: a pood equals 40 pounds. End of footnote. In weight. If thou canst bend this bow in the presence of these my guests, thou shalt have my daughter." When dinner was over, they all lay down to rest, but the prince hastened off as quickly as he could to Ivan Golik, and said, "Now indeed it is all over with us, for he has given me such and such a task." "Simpleton!" cried Ivan Golik. "When they bring forth this bow, look at it, and say to the serpent, 'I should be ashamed to bend a bow that the least of my servants can bend.' Then call me, and I'll bend the bow, so that none other will be able to bend it again." With that the prince went straight off to the serpent again, and the serpent commanded, and they brought the bow, together with an arrow weighing 50 poods. When the prince saw it, he was like to have died of fright, but they put the bow down in the middle of the courtyard, and all the guests came out to look at it. The prince walked all round the bow and looked at it. "Why," he said, "I would not deign to touch a bow like that. I'll call one of my servants, for any one of them can bend such a bow as that." Then the serpent looked at the prince's servants one after another, and said, "Well, let them try." "Come forward thou, Ivan Golik," cried the prince. And the prince said to him, "Take me up that bow and bend it." Ivan Golik took up the bow, placed the arrow across it, and drew the bow so that the arrow split into 12 pieces, and the bow burst. Then the prince said, "Did I not tell you? And was I to put myself to shame by touching a bow that one of my servants can draw?" After that Ivan Golik returned to his fellow servants, and put the pieces of the broken bow behind his shin bone. But the prince returned with the serpents into the guest chamber, and they all rejoiced because he had done his appointed task. But the serpent whispered something in the ear of his youngest daughter, and she went out, and he after her. They remained outside a long time, and then the serpent came in again and said to the prince, "There is no time for anything more today, but we'll begin again early tomorrow morning. I have a horse behind 12 doors. If thou canst mount it, thou shalt have my daughter." Then they made merry again till evening, and lay down to sleep. But the prince went and told Golok. Golok listened to the prince and said, "Now thou knowest, I suppose, why I took up those pieces of the broken bow, for I could see what was coming. When they lead forth this horse, look at it and say, 'I will not mount that horse, lest I put myself to shame.' 'Tis with the horse as with the bow, any one of my servants can mount it. But that horse is no horse at all, but the serpent's youngest daughter. Thou must not sit upon her back, but I will trounce her finely." Early in the morning they all arose, and the prince went to the serpent's house to greet them all, and there he saw 20 of the serpent's daughters, but where was the 21st? Then the serpent got up and said, "Well, prince, now let us come down into the courtyard. They'll soon bring out the horse, and we'll see what thou dost make of it." So they all went out, and saw 2 serpents bringing out the horse, and it was as much as the pair of them could do to hold its head, so fierce and strong it was. They led it out in front of the gallery, and the prince walked round it and looked at it. Then said he, "What, did you not say you would bring out a horse? Why, this is no horse, but a mare. I will not sit on this mare, for 'twould be to my shame. I will call one of my servants, and he shall mount her." "Good," said the serpent, "let him try." The prince called forth Ivan Golik. "Sit on that mare," said he, "and trot her about." Ivan mounted the mare, and the 2 serpents let go. She carried him right up among the clouds, and then down again upon the ground she came, with a ringing of hoofs that made the earth tremble. But Ivan Golik took out a fragment of the broken bow, 50 pounds in weight, and trounced her finely. She reared and bucked and carried him hither and thither, but he flogged her between the ears without ceasing. So when she saw that all her prancing and curveting was in vain, she fell to piteously beseeching him, and cried, Ivan Golik, beat me not, and I'll do all thy behests." "I have nothing to do with thee at all," said he, "but when thou dost come up to the prince, fall down before him, and stretch out thy legs toward him." At this she bethought her for a long time. "Well," cried she at last, "it must be so. There is no doing anything with thee." So she carried him all over the courtyard, fell down before the prince, and stretched out her legs toward him. Then said the prince, "Thou seest what a sorry jade it is, and ye would have me mount such a mare?" At this the serpent was full of shame, but there was nothing to be said or done. So they went into the garden and sat them down to dinner. The youngest daughter met them there, and they greeted her. The prince could not refrain from looking at her, so fair was she, and now she seemed fairer than ever. Then they sat down and ate, and when the meal was over, the serpent said, "Well, prince, after dinner I'll bring all my daughters into the courtyard, and if you can find out the youngest, you may be happy together." So after dinner the serpent bade his daughters go and dress themselves, but the prince took counsel of Ivan Golik. Ivan whistled, and immediately the gnat came flying up. He told the gnat all about it, and the gnat said, "Thou didst help me, so now I will help thee. When the serpent brings out his daughters, let the prince keep his eyes open, for I will fly on her head. Let him walk round them once, and I will fly round them too. Let him walk round them a second time, and I will fly round them twice also. Let him walk round them a third time, and then I'll settle on her nose, and she will not be able to endure my bite, but will strike at me with her right hand." And with these words the gnat flew off into the house. Soon afterward the serpent sent for the prince. He went, and there in the courtyard stood the 21 daughters. They were like as peas, their faces, their hair, and their raiment were exactly the same. He looked and looked, but could not tell one from the other. He walked round them the first time, but there was no sign of the gnat. He walked round them the second time, and the gnat came and lit upon her head. Henceforth he never took his eyes off the gnat, and when he had begun to walk round the 21 daughters for the third time, the gnat sat on the nose of the youngest, and began to bite her. She brushed it off with her right hand, whereupon the prince said, "She is mine," and led her to the serpent. The serpent was amazed, but said, "Since thou hast found out thy bride, we'll wed thee today, and all be married together." So they made them merry, and that very evening the young couple got their bridal crowns, and they feasted and fired guns, and what else did they not do? But at night Ivan Golik took the prince aside and said to him, "Now, prince, see that we go home tomorrow, for they mean us no good here. And now listen to me. I beg thee, tell not thy wife the truth of the matter for 7 years. However caressing she may be, thou shalt not let her ears know the truth, for if thou dost tell her the truth, both thou and I shall perish." "Good," said he, "I will not tell my wife the truth." Next morning the young men arose and went to the serpent, and the prince took leave of his father-in-law, and said he must be going home. "But why off so soon?" said the serpent. "Nay, but I must go," said he. Then the serpent gave the youth a banquet, and they sat down and ate and made merry, and after that he departed to his own tsardom. And the prince thanked Ivan Golik for all that he had done for him, and made him the first of his counselors. Whatever Ivan Golik said was performed throughout the realm, while the Tsar had only to sit on his throne and do nothing. So the young prince dwelt with his wife for a year or two, and in the 3rd year a son was added to them, and the heart of the prince was glad. Now one day he took his little son in his arms and said, "Is there anything in the wide world that I like better than this child?" When the princess saw that the heart of her spouse was tender, she fell a kissing and caressing him, and began asking him all about the time when they were first married, and how he had been able to do her father's commands. And the prince said to her, "My head would long ago have been mouldering on the posts of thy father's palace, had it not been for Ivan Golik. 'Twas he who did it all, and not I." Then she was very wrath, but she never changed countenance, and shortly afterward she went out. Ivan Golik was sitting in his own house at his ease, when the princess came flying into him, and immediately she drew out of the ground a handkerchief with gold borders, and no sooner had she waved the serpentine handkerchief than Ivan fell asunder into 2 pieces. His legs remained where they were, but his trunk with his head disappeared through the roof, and fell 7 miles away from the house. And as he fell he cried, "O accursed one! Did I not charge thee not to confess? Did I not implore thee not to tell thy wife the truth for 7 years? And now I perish, and thou also." He raised his head and found himself sitting in a wood, and there he saw an armless man pursuing a hare. He pursued and pursued it, but though he caught it up, he couldn't catch it, for he had no arms. Then Ivan Golik caught it, and they fell out about it. The armless one said, "The hare is mine." "No," said Ivan Golik, "it is mine." So they quarrelled over it, but as one had no legs and the other had no arms, they couldn't hurt one another. At last the armless one said, "What is the use of our quarrelling? Let us pull up that oak, and whichever of us pitches it farthest shall have the hare." "Good," said Legless. Then Armless kicked Legless up to the oak, and Legless pulled it up and gave it to Armless. Then Armless lay down on the ground and kicked the oak with his feet 3 miles off, but Legless threw it 7 miles. Then Armless said, "Take the hare and be my elder brother." So they became brothers, and made a wagon between them, and fastened ropes to it, and while Armless dragged it along, Legless drove it. On they went till they came to a town where a Tsar lived. There they went up to the church, and planted themselves with their wagon in the place of beggars, and waited till the Tsarivna came up. And the Tsarivna said to her court lady, "Take this money, and give it to those poor cripples." The lady was about to go with it, when Legless said, "Nay, but let the Tsarivna give it to us with her own hands." Then the Tsarivna took the money from her court lady, and gave it to Legless. But he said to her, "Be not angry, but tell me now, wherefore art thou so yellow?" "God made me so," answered she, and then she sighed. "No," replied Legless, "I know why thou art so yellow, but I can make thee once more just as God made thee." Now the Tsar had heard them speaking, and the words of the cripples moved him strangely. So he had the armless man and the legless man in the wagon brought to him, and said to them, "Do as you are able." But Legless said, "O Tsar, let the Tsarivna speak the truth, and confess openly how she became so yellow." Then the father turned to his daughter, and she confessed and said, "The serpent flew to me, and drew my blood out of my breast." "When did he fly to thee?" they asked. "Just before dawn, when the guards were sleeping. He came flying down my chimney. In he came flying, and lay down beneath the cushions of my couch." "Stop!" cried Legless. "We'll hide in the straw in thy room, and when the serpent comes flying in again, thou must cough and wake us." So they hid them in the straw, and just as the guards had ceased knocking at the doors, as they went their rounds, sparks began to flash beneath the straw roof, and the Tsarivna coughed. They rushed up to her, and saw the serpent already nestling beneath the cushions. Then the Tsarivna leaped out of bed, but Armless lay down on the floor and kicked Legless onto the cushions, and Legless took the serpent in his arms and began to throttle it. Let me go," begged the serpent, "and I'll never fly here again, but will renounce my tithes." But Legless said, "That is but a small thing. Thou must carry us to the place of healing waters, that I may get back my legs and my brother here his arms." "Catch hold of me," said the serpent, "and I'll take you, only torture me no more." So Legless clung on to him with his arms, and Armless with his feet, and the serpent flew away with them till he came to a spring. "There's your healing water," cried he. Armless wanted to plunge in straightway, but Legless shrieked, "Wait, brother, hold the serpent tight with your legs, while I thrust a dry stick into the spring, and then we shall see whether it really is healing water." So he thrust a stick in, and no sooner had it touched the water than it was consumed as though by fire. Then the pair of them in their rage fell upon that false serpent and almost killed him. They beat him and beat him till he cried for mercy. "Beat me no more," cried he. "The spring of healing water is not very far off." Then he took them to another spring. Into this they also dipped a dry stick, and immediately it burst into flower. Then Armless leaped into the spring and leaped out again with arms, whereupon he pitched in Legless, who immediately leaped out again with legs of his own. So they let the serpent go, first making him promise never to fly to the Tsarivna again, and then each thanked the other for his friendship, and so they parted. But Ivan Golik went again to his brother the prince, to see what had become of him. "I wonder what the princess has done to him," thought he. So he went toward that tsardom, and presently he saw, not very far from the roadside, a swineherd tending swine. He was tending swine, but he himself sat upon a tomb. "I'll go and ask that swineherd what he's doing there," thought Ivan Golik. So he went up to the swineherd, and looking straight into his eyes, recognized his own brother. And the swineherd looked at him and recognized Ivan Golik. There they stood for a long time, looking into each other's eyes, but neither of them spoke a word. At last Ivan Golik found his voice. "What?" cried he. "Is it thou, O prince, who art feeding swine? Thou art rightly served. Did I not bid thee tell not thy wife the truth for 7 years?" At this the prince flung himself down at the other's feet and cried, "O Ivan Golik, forgive me and have mercy." Then Ivan Golik raised him up by the shoulders and said, "'Tis well for thee that thou art still in God's fair world. Yet wait a little while, and thou shalt be Tsar again." The prince thereupon asked Ivan Golik how he got his legs back again, for the princess had told him how she had cut Ivan Golik in two. Then Ivan Golik confessed to him that he was his younger brother, and told him the whole story of his life. So they embraced and kissed each other, and then the prince said, "'Tis high time I drove these swine home, for the princess doesn't like being kept waiting for her tea." "Well," said Ivan Golik, "we'll drive them back together." "The worst of it, brother, is this," said the prince. Dost thou see that accursed pig that leads the others? Well, he will go only up to the gate of the sty, and there he stands fast as if rooted to the ground, and until I kiss his bristles he will not move from the spot. And all the time the princess and the serpents are sitting in the gallery at tea, and they look on and laugh." But Ivan Golik said, "It needs must be so. Kiss it again today, and tomorrow thou shalt kiss it no more." Then they drove the swine up to the gates, and Ivan Golik looked to see what would happen. He saw the princess sitting in the gallery with 6 serpents drinking tea, and the accursed pig stuck fast in the gate, and stretched out its legs and wouldn't go in. The princess looked down and said, "Look at my fool driving the swine, and now he is going to kiss the big boar." So the poor fellow stooped down and kissed its bristles, and the pig ran grunting into the courtyard. Then the princess said, "Look, he has picked up from somewhere an under herdsman to help him." The prince and Ivan Golik drove the pigs into their sty, and then Ivan Golik said, "Brother, get me 20 poods of hemp and 20 poods of pitch, and bring them to me in the garden." And he did so. Then Ivan Golik made him a huge whip of the 20 poods of hemp and the 20 poods of tar. First he twined tightly a pood of hemp, and tarred it well with a pood of pitch. Round this he plaited another pood of hemp, and tarred that also with another pood of pitch, till he had used up the whole 40. By midnight his task was done, and then he laid him down to sleep. But the prince had gone to sleep long before in the pigsty. Early in the morning they rose up again, and Ivan Golik said to him, "Up till today thou hast been a swineherd, and after today thou shalt be a prince again. But first let us drive the swine into the field." "Nay, but," said the prince, "the princess has not yet come out upon the balcony to drink tea with the serpents, and see me kiss the pig before it goes out, as is her wont." Ivan Golik said to him, "We will drive the swine out this time too, but it will not be thou but I who shall kiss the big boar." "Good," said the prince. And now the time came for the swine to be driven away, and the princess came out on the balcony to drink tea. They took the swine out of the sty, and the pair of them drove the beasts before them. When they reached the gate, the leading pig stuck fast in the gateway, and wouldn't budge an inch. The princess and the serpents grinned and looked on, but Ivan Golik flicked his heroic whip, and struck the pig one blow that made it fly to pieces. Then all the serpents wriggled off as fast as they could. But she, the accursed one, was in no way frightened, but caught Ivan by the hair of his head. He, however, caught her also by her long locks, and flicked her with his whip till he had flicked all the serpent blood out of her, and she walked the earth in human guise. So she cast off her serpent nature, and lived happily with her husband. And that's the end of the Kashka. End of section 28. End of Cossack Fairy Tales by Robert Nisbet Bain.